Hey everyone, welcome to the Errant Venture. This is our first episode of our new podcast. My name is Steve,
I'm Adam.
and we're excited for episode 1.
Yeah, totally,
So,
totally. I was thinking back in 1977. A New Hope was like hugely successful and innovative. But nowadays it's like everything's all dark and broody and emo and ooh realistic. Ooh, let's suffer. So I'm wondering. I was wondering would A New Hope be as successful today as it was back then?
I often do get that thought come into my mind, and I see, I see the prequels, I see the sequels, and you can see a gradual change with each one. It's kind of like a more modernization of the technology behind it and to the current, market of movies. Do I think the movie would do well now? I think the theory of the movie would do great. I think the storyline would do great.
Yeah.
But every other aspect would be modernized. And that's also the part that worries me. I feel like the characters wouldn't be as memorable as they were.
Well, I mean that's something that you have to think about. Like when we think about, is it going to be successful today? Well, are we talking what are we talking about? There is a lot of things to kind of take into consideration. We talking about the story, and now you're talking about the technology, because back then, yeah, the technology was, brand new. So, if let's say, for example, that Star Wars was never made, right? And here we are, we're in 2021. Now all of a sudden, George Lucas comes out and says, "Hey, I have a brand new movie," right? And none of the technology that George Lucas created back in the day exists, right? Or maybe, yeah, well, let's say it doesn't exist. Then okay, well, now this stuff has never been seen before. Here we are in 2021. It's never been seen. Would it be successful? And I mean, there's different things to take into consideration. So for me personally, I kind of believe, the story of A New Hope would be successful, because I think that's what we need. We need that story of hope that, hey, things are not that good, but they're going to get better. We just got to hold out. We got to work at it. It'll get better. And I think that message, would be successful.
So I think right now in the current climate coming out of the pandemic, hope is what we all need.
Yeah.
It's what we all want to see. It's everything right now. Now, in order for me to really get behind, if Star Wars were to come out now, you got to think back to when Avatar came out. Mm-hmm. Because essentially, that is this generation's Star Wars. When Star Wars came out, first you had, it's a great movie, but the marvel of it was the technology, the colors, all the things that you typically did not see in movies back then.
Yeah.
But now you look at...
Plus the shooting styles, the modeling.
Exactly.
And the special effects.
And then when you get to Avatar, which was especially when it took place right at what I'm going to call the TV boom. All of a sudden you had plasmas, you had LCDs, LEDs, all these new TV technologies kind of saying, hey, look at our colors. It was also right when 3D television was making it big.
Yep.
So in terms of technology, you're looking at the technology of Avatar and the story of A New Hope. And I think that type of story of, the underdog, there's always a place for it. It's always a win.
Yeah.
And as long as the climate hasn't seen enough of that type of story, it's always going to be appreciated. Now, as I was saying before about the characters, my worry is, Darth Vader these days would not look like Darth Vader. Darth Vader would, in my mind, looks like Iron Man in black with a cape. That's kind of how he went. You saw it when the Power Rangers came back for a movie.
Yeah.
Gone were the spandex suits and stuff from the 90s, and they looked like a troop of multicolored Iron Men. And
you're talking about the new movie?
Yeah, the movie that came out a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah.
And that's
because they had one back in the 90s and early 2000s.
And that one, I didn't see the new one, but I saw the commercials and the trailers for it, but to me,
I did. It was eh.
I wanted to, and I just couldn't do it.
Eh.
But I was really hoping they would bring back the original cast, with subtle changes.
Oh.
But but at the end of the day, I feel like the costumes would be different. And part of the things that I like about Star Wars, and here's always that rose-colored glasses. I'm looking at it as a movie that came out before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
That came out. I fell in love with it when my parents first showed me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to see it through now. And for me, you change any aspect of it, I'm going to be upset. And now I'm trying to think of it, completely rebooted, but in a newer, or not even rebooted, as if it never existed.
Yeah.
And coming out now, and it would be a much shorter movie. It would either be a lot shorter, or the fight scenes would be extremely drawn out.
Depends on who was directing it.
Well, if it's Michael Bay, it's just the Death Star blowing up time after time after time.
It's just everything exploding if it was him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you brought up Avatar, and it kind of brings up the question of, well, gee, if Star Wars never happened, would we still have the special effects technology that we have today? Would Avatar have been possible if Star Wars didn't come out? And while you're thinking about that, I kind of feel that, yeah, it would. The reason I say that is because we've had others. We had... Yes. You had Battlestar Galactica,
which I just started watching,
and it's the classic one, not the new one.
Yes,
the new one is
the classic one.
The new one is great.
1978.
The new one is more, doom and gloom and all emo, like I was saying before. The original one was a lot more hopeful.
Yes,
and I personally love it. But then again, I'm old enough that I remember watching the episodes when they were coming out the first time. I remember being at my aunt's house, and my Aunt Gertie, God bless her soul, we were having dinner, and it was, the same night Battlestar Galactica was coming out. I had to watch it. We literally all sat down and watched it. And it was great. And it was actually Fire in Space was the episode. So, we had Battlestar Galactica, and even though there was the lawsuit that George Lucas had against Battlestar Galactica, which, side note, is kind of funny because Glenn Larson actually was developing Battlestar Galactica years before Star Wars came out or was even thought of. So that is a little.
It's all about who gets to the public first.
Yeah, and George Lucas obviously got to the punch first. But back to my point, we had Battlestar Galactica, and then we also had Star Trek. Because Star Trek was from the '60s, but they also were going to come out with Phase 2 in the '70s, and then obviously when Star Wars happened, they said, oh, let's make a movie instead. But I kind of feel like you still would have had a movie eventually. And I think that, because of those plus, other TV shows and movies from that time period, I kind of think somebody would have, done something to get us along that track.
So I do believe we would have gotten to where we are now. Would it have happened as quickly? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But you got to think, as you were saying, there's Battlestar, there's Star Trek, there's other things coming out. Mm-hmm. But even when you look towards movies like Ghostbusters, and you look at and don't forget about Ghostbusters 2.
Can't forget about Ghostbusters 2.
But you see all the other movies that are out there that maybe weren't as expansive as Star Wars was. They were hinting in the right direction, and they were continuing to go. Now, would we have Avatar technology in, what was the movie, 2014, 13, something like that when it came out? Would it have been like that then? I'm not sure. I think there would have been a delay. I think, Star Wars sped up technology to where it was, and you can never go backwards. You can always go forward. You only go forward. And Star Wars was like that, hyperspace to where it was, from where it was.
Right.
And, So with that change brought in a whole new world. So I believe that would we have gotten there? Absolutely. But we would, what we're seeing now, we probably wouldn't see that for another little bit.
Right.
Or maybe things would have caught up, but it would have had its growing pains to get there.
Or another thing that could have happened was, rather than the technology that George Lucas used, he would have actually taken what we would theoretically have and improved upon it.
Yes.
To get us closer to where we are now.
It would have been definitely a change. But once again, that also lends credence if A New Hope didn't come out in 1977 and it came out now. We're also once again thinking about this with what the current technology is. In my mind, we have to kind of have to think about it, 2-3 years ago technology, which still is pretty good.
Yeah.
Honestly, I see things now, whether it's on video games, CGI. I can't tell. Everything is done with a green screen these days anyway, for the most part. I see like the set they have for Kenobi, and they actually built buildings. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
But, that's a story for another topic. But, just seeing what they've done with technology in the meantime, it also makes me wonder, for A New Hope, part of the fun part is looking back on all the how-tos and how they made it and all the work that went into it. And it makes me wonder, would it be easier to make it now than it was back then? But I think, in sticking with...
I think definitely it would be easier.
Oh, absolutely. Everything with computers now.
Yeah.
But, thinking back to the topic, whether or not the movie would do well, I think it's a story that's tried and true.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's aspects of it that are going to work out no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The movie would have to be very flashy these days. I know I have the attention span of a goldfish. And sometimes, as much as I love watching the original Star Wars movies, there's always that debate. If you have a kid who's never seen Star Wars before, do you bring them in at episode 4 or episode 1? And it's actually a heated debate because, is a kid, a 7-year-old, going to pay attention through the original A New Hope more than they would pay attention through episode 1? Episode 1 is geared towards kids, mostly.
True.
So in my mind, there would be a lot of changes. It would have to be flashier. With Disney at the wheel, there's going to be things to make it cuter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a lot of changes that would go to it, which, I do think it would be successful.
Well,
but I don't think it's going to be as earth-shattering as the original.
Now, and there's good points. The one thing, though, to kind of think about also, because you had mentioned with Disney at the helm, but would Disney be at the helm?
That depends, because you got to remember, LucasArts was out before Star Wars.
True. This is true.
So
it was.
And I remember going to Universal Studios as a kid and having the being able to watch the Indiana Jones show there, and so now. Do I think Disney's right now these days in the streaming age? Disney's buying everything. All the networks are buying everything. If it's not Disney, it's going to be someone else.
Yeah, if it's not Disney, it would probably be like AT&T because they're buying everything also. But there are so many. On one hand, this is like opening up a Pandora's box.
Oh yeah.
Because you got so many scenarios that you can go through from Well, what about the technology? Would we still have it? This and that and the other thing. But then you'd also come up with, well, gee, if there's no Star Wars, there wouldn't be like a Star Wars phenomena, and it wouldn't be the moneymaker that it is. And if it wasn't the moneymaker that it is, then George Lucas wouldn't have had a chance to sell it to Disney, so Disney wouldn't own it, and on and on and on and on and on. So, it's a Pandora's box there with that.
At the end of the day, I think regardless of who owns Star Wars, whether Lucas never sold and held on to it, or if it came out as Disney, I think it would do great. Do I think it would do as good as it did back in the 70s? No, nowhere near. Do I think it would be as grossing as the episodes are these days? No, not at all. No. You're talking astronomical numbers because of what a lot of people saw as, hey, this is awesome technology, different things. These days, there's so many movies out there that are very similar to it.
Yeah.
And once again, you mentioned Pandora's Box. Think of all the movies and stuff like that came out of Star Wars. Like you read books. Like one of my favorite book series is the Errant series, and you can see Star Wars all over that series.
Sure.
But, not to mention all the classic times where it's people are acting it out in TV shows. But in
Holiday
regards,
special.
there you go. But in regards to the movie, it's a tried and true, as I'm going to keep saying. But I don't think it would be as big. The things that I think would be good to come out of it was Leia would finally be recognized as a Disney princess.
Of course.
And, officially. But other than that, I think it would be a good movie. I don't know if it would necessarily stand out as much as it did. Really the big thing it would have going for itself is that message of hope. The idea of a lightsaber. And after that, it's going to be actually kind of debatable. I think people are going to like it because it's great storytelling. But unless they really make it a lot of flashy, I don't think it would be as memorable as 50 years, 40 years down the line as we have it.
I agree with you on that point. I mean, definitely the message would would definitely sell it, but like as far as everything else goes, I think you're right. I don't think that it would stand up the way it does today, like the way it has been.
You would never have a Star Wars universe. You would never have the book series, the comic books.
Yeah.
All these extra things on Disney Plus. You would never have any of it if it came out now.
Yeah.
You would maybe get your trilogy, but your original trilogy, you would maybe get that depending upon how it's sold, but you wouldn't get anything outside of that original trilogy.
I'm not sure if you would get the trilogy or not. That really depends on how well it does.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think it would do good enough to merit a sequel. And if Fast and the Furious has told us anything, no, I think it would be good enough to merit a third one.
Yeah.
But to have such a 40 years later, 20, 40 years earlier type situation going on, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Which I guess would be great because then we wouldn't have Jar Jar.
That would be a good plus.
Yes.
We wouldn't have Jar Jar, but you know what? We also wouldn't have had Last Jedi.
Oh, I'm still looking for the maybe in this. I'm looking for the fault.
I'm not a really big fan of Last Jedi, so we wouldn't have Jar Jar and we wouldn't have Last Jedi.
Okay, I thought you were saying that sarcastically, but we wouldn't have this in this. This movie.
Yeah, no, quite the opposite.
Okay,
quite the opposite.
Like honestly, for me, the best things that came out of the prequels was Obi-Wan Kenobi. For me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I loved Darth Maul, but as awesome as Maul was in Episode 1, it really isn't until his appearances in Rebels and in the Clone Wars that it brought him so much deeper of a character. And the only thing I like about the sequel trilogy, I'm a huge fan of porgs. Those little bastards are awesome.
I was really excited when Force Awakens came out. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the movie.
They played it safe. That movie was played so safe.
It was played safe. And you know what? That's okay with me.
Well, that's what it needed.
I really did. I enjoyed The Force Awakens. I thought it was a really good movie. Yeah, it did play it safe. Yes, it was pretty much a rehash of, A New Hope. The planet destroyer, even in The Rise of Skywalker, the planet destroyer weapon to me is just like it's beating a dead horse.
I will give it credit. Starkiller based the Force Unleashed call out. I appreciated that very much because you ever play the Force Unleashed?
I did not play the Force Unleashed.
So they do have books on it too. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
and essentially it's Darth Vader kills a Jedi, steals the Jedi's son, who's also very Force sensitive, brings him up to be his hidden apprentice from Palpatine.
Nice.
So and there's actually a sequel to it as well. But
Okay.
I highly recommend it.
Nice. But as far as like the sequels go, I just think it would have been better, and I know we're totally like going off topic here, but I really think it would have been better if there was no planet killer, and we really just saw like the First Order just dominating the worlds of the galaxy, you know, and just showing like how brutal were they? Well, let's see how brutal they were, something else besides, oh hey, we're gonna make a Death Star type of thing. And
I do want to stop
there
you
you
right
go.
there because you actually just rang a bell in my head. Could The Force Awakens kind of be seen as what A New Hope would have been in the modern day? Granted, it already had the following, from years of being Star Wars, but in terms of bringing in new fans, people who this may have been their first, forte into Star Wars, very similar story, very similar aspects to it. A lot of the same cast, some new cast, pretty modernized version of it at the speed of modern movies, which is the one thing that I feel like would be lacking if if A New Hope came out the way it was now, is the speed of the movie. So can that be seen as kind of like a testing of if A New Hope came out now?
I think so.
Or in 2015.
I think so. I think so. I mean, especially the cinematography on it. I mean, a lot of those like the shots of the Falcon on Jakku is that's what we wanted to see, like in The Empire Strikes Back when they're in the asteroid field. We want that. That's the way the asteroid field battle should have gone. Where he's just zooming in and out of the asteroids, and you actually follow the Falcon, as it goes under asteroids and through it and all that. So I think the cinematography would have done a lot of the job that the technology did back in '77.
No, and I agree, and I think the way that they set that up, for me, and you look at the numbers that movie grossed, and after you take account for, okay, a lot of people came to see it was the first Star Wars movie in years, you had the cast of the original ones, if you take away those aspects of it, I still think you would have a successful movie, because also remember, you take away those aspects of it, everything in that movie cost-wise drops. The characters, for the 15 seconds that Luke is in it with no lines, he made $1 million. Just to stand up there and look stupid.
That's a good $1 million.
I know, right?
I would love to make $1 million just standing there.
Yeah, just let my facial hair grow and... but at the end of the day, that cost $1 million. Harrison Ford cost more than that. They all cost a lot more than that.
Oh well, they had to pay Harrison Ford a pretty penny because
he did not want to.
He didn't want to do it.
No, he wanted Han to die.
In Return of the Jedi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, that's actually the perfect way to look at it. You kind of have to take away a bunch of aspects. So as always, it's a mystery. But you have to look at it as how many new fans were brought into the Star Wars universe by that movie.
Yeah.
And I think the numbers were good, and just because it's a Disney film, that's always going to have something going with it.
Sure.
So I think based on that movie, they would have at least gotten a sequel out of it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
and who knows how that would have gone. I think because then everything would have changed going forward. We would have had, because you wouldn't have been relying on past villains. It would have been their first time, so all the stories from there go.
Sure.
So I think it would have been. It's a good experiment. It's a good thing to theorize on.
Yeah.
And I think that really puts a good, at least a partial answer to this question because the movies are so similar.
Yep. I think so. I think so. Yeah, I was going to say something. I totally forgot what I was going to say. It just totally went. This is what happens when you get to be my age. You just forget things all the time.
Yeah, I call that my life. But no, it is amusing, just how far Star Wars has come. Granted, it's older than I am, but I'm looking through how many comic books are out there, how many things were spawned from A New Hope.
Yeah.
And just how awesome that is. Like, you can't create a universe like that these days. Without... Well, I guess you can because they're doing it with, like, the Marvel stuff. But I feel like, to me, it's very forced. I don't even watch it.
But you can't really count them. You can't really count the MCU. Okay? The reason you can't count the MCU is because it already existed. It just wasn't on film. Marvel characters have been around since the 40s.
Yeah, this is true.
So, they were just very successful and smart with how they did it. And listen, in my opinion, and my opinion only, DC needs to take a page out of Marvel's book. Because, listen, Marvel did it right. They introduced the characters, they took their time, they built up to the big team-up movie. Whereas DC is just like, oh, let's... Superman movie. Okay, yay! And, here's a Batman Superman movie. Oh, here's a little team-up for you. And, now we're going to have a really big one. And we're going to bring in characters that you've never seen on screen before. And, Marvel really did it right.
All right. I'll have to. Like I said, I have not watched much. Like, once they started kind of, you have to watch this one to watch this one to go back to watch this one, and it starts up here, and somewhere over here there's more. I started going, I don't have the attention span for that, and I stopped watching. But no,
you know what? That's actually, to interrupt you for a second, that very question is the exact same question of, if I had, a child, well, I do have a child, but, if I was going to introduce my child or someone new to the Star Wars universe, where would I start? It's the same question with Marvel. Because some movies are done, like Captain Marvel and Captain America First Avenger. Those were, chronologically prior to Iron Man.
Okay.
So it's kind of the same kind of question. How do you watch it?
And what's fun is, my wife and I, I was not allowed to watch, the Rise of Skywalker. I was not allowed to watch that until my wife got caught up. She forgot a few of the movies, so we literally went back and we watched everything. And I asked her, how do you want to do this? She said, well, I want to watch all the cartoons. I want to watch all the movies. And I'm just like, I am never going to see this freaking movie.
No.
And, but,
by the time you actually see the movie, you would already know what happened in the movie because everybody would talk about it.
I did my best to avoid spoilers, but at the end of the day, and I recommend this to everyone watching and listening, if your significant other is willing to watch that much Star Wars, it's worth the sacrifice. She wanted to watch everything. I was more than happy to say, okay, so we watched all the movies. We watched the prequels. We watched the originals. We watched Solo. We watched Rogue One.
I completely agree with you.
There's one thing we didn't watch that is still considered canon, and that was Resistance. We did not watch Resistance because I don't think that helps.
Yeah, you weren't missing much.
No, it does not help the storyline one bit.
Nah.
Love the animation, but
let me tell you, I have to watch everything by myself. Or with my father. My wife, no interest in it whatsoever. Basically everything that I like, she doesn't like. So I gotta do it all by myself. My daughter, some things every now and then if it's on TV and she doesn't want to move, she'll watch it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think, let's say your daughter's never seen any of these, would she like episode 4 better or episode 1?
That depends. How old is she?
Now.
Okay, so my daughter is 13 years old. Yeah, angry teenager. I would start her off at episode 4.
Okay.
The reason I would do that, because she's old enough to have the attention span to sit through episode 4.
Okay.
She's not, when you got a little kid, as much as we all hate Jar Jar Binks, and as much as
it's like waving the keys, going.
I can't tell you how many videos and memes there are of, Jar Jar dying. There is a lot. There is a lot, and we enjoy all of them. But
what about Darth Jar Jar? Remember that rumor?
Yeah, Darth Jar Jar. Yeah.
I loved that. That had to be one of my favorite Star Wars rumors ever. Darth Jar Jar.
That was really, that's a ridiculous one too. It's like, really? You turn Jar Jar? Really? I don't think so. He doesn't have the brain power.
But at the end of the day, they've made so many changes or retcons to Star Wars over time. Like this means that apparently the dude at the end of Return of the Jedi who helped them find the base is now supposed to be Rex. You haven't heard that one?
No.
I think that one has now been made canon.
Really?
Yeah, they're saying that. So at the end, when Han tricks the guys into following him, and they runs on the side building, they're all standing there. Yeah, if you look at the guy kneeling, he got the facial hair like Rex does in Rebels, and so now they're saying that's Rex.
If I was that actor, I'd be like, oh, so my name is Rex?
Yeah.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Give me the money.
I'm a lot more important now.
Give me the money. So, So as much as we hate Jar Jar, let's get back to that. As much as we hate Jar Jar, I think Jar Jar was very necessary to suck the kids into the movie.
All right.
The younger kids especially, because younger kids, they're gonna get scared of a lot of the action sequences that went on. So you take the action sequences and the kids are like, oh no, and then you have, oh, me's I like this.
Well, you also have a lot of people sitting in circles in that episode.
Yeah.
Lots of people in circles.
Yeah.
But
if my daughter was younger, I would definitely start her out, and she was interested. I would definitely start her out. I know, definitely start her out with episode 1.
All right.
But now that she's older, she's 13 years old, I'd kind of start her off at episode 4, and then I would do is once I get her acclimated to Star Wars and she's hooked in, then I say, okay, let's go back and watch them in chronological order.
Okay.
Then I would start with, a Phantom Menace, and then,
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, and then I'd go to Solo, and because it's just a great movie, and then I'd go to Rogue One, and then, A New Hope.
And for those who don't like Solo, lower your bar.
Seriously, you know what?
Lower your bar.
If you go in expecting, if you're sitting down and watch the movie, and you're going in expecting like big, epic, like everything else in Star Wars, you're going to be very disappointed. But if you go in and just enjoy the movie, and
watch it as a movie.
It's really a great movie, and everybody in it did such an amazing job in it.
Who would think that Donald Glover can go from playing Troy in Community to playing Lando Calrissian?
Yeah, seriously. So I mean, just take it as a movie. Don't take it as, oh, that's not big and epic and it stinks. No. Just calm yourself down.
You got Darth Maul, like case over.
Oh yeah,
we win.
But I mean, then you'd go on to, the original trilogy, and then this. And by the way, yes, I would have her watch the holiday special. It is on film, and according to George Lucas himself, anything that was on screen is canon.
There you go.
So the holiday special is still canon. So I would have her watch that because it's just fun to watch. It's kind of like getting bar and bat mitzvahed. I had to do it. You have to do it.
It's a rite of passage.
Exactly. So yeah. So I would even have her watch that and go straight on to, Rise of Skywalker. Would I have her watch the TV shows? I don't know.
You could make if you're gonna stick to the movies, you can make do without watching the cartoons. And one of the things my wife and I, we watched the movies a bunch of years ago, and what we were doing is we kind of watched everything coinciding with each other, and especially the Clone Wars, like not the Rebels, not so much, but the Clone Wars, it ties off a lot of loose ends, and you can see in a lot of the stuff that Star Wars is putting on now, it's tying off loose ends. It's filling in plot holes. You see it in the Bad Batch. You saw it in a little bit in Rebels. And what's fun about Rebels is you see things that they might use in the future. When they put the Veil of the Force in there, they had never intended on it being used again in the future. That was never a thought.
Yeah.
And now it's looking at a potential, to some people, if you believe the rumor mill, the savior of Star Wars.
Well, yeah, because
the ultimate reset.
It's actually I wouldn't necessarily call it a rumor, because I actually did read in a number of different articles from like legitimate legitimate sources that it's actually that's something that they're toying around with is hey, this.
A lot of people want to undo pretty much everything Kathleen Kennedy did.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? I don't want to undo everything that she did. I just want to undo The Last Jedi. I'm sorry, but you got to give Rian Johnson a lot of credit, because this guy was able to go into Disney and tell Disney the kind of movie he wants to make, and to actually have Disney let him do it.
You're saying that they had such a difficult time getting directors for that for all the movies except for The Force Awakens. They had such a hard time finding directors, and on top of that, retaining directors, retaining actors, that at that point I think they're willing to go with whoever could finish the job. Like they could have literally had Jar Jar come back and be like the hero, and Disney would have said, okay, let's make some stuffed animals, we'll be sold.
It's just, listen, when you have somebody who lays out, when they lay out all of the groundwork, and they kind of map everything out and the direction that they want it to go, and then you come along and say, yeah, no, and you go and do your own thing, and then you get angry when there's backlash. I mean, come on.
Well, who would have thought that Richie Cunningham would direct the last one? Ron Howard.
He didn't direct Rise of Skywalker.
He didn't?
Ron
Howard?
Yeah. He directed Solo.
Crap, you're right. Ha! I goofed.
JJ did.
Right.
JJ came back and did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, totally goofed on that one. But even still, who would have thought that Richie Cunningham would come in and have any part in the Star Wars world? Because if you remember, he was not the original director for Solo.
No.
But either way, we have strayed a lot. So.
Oh, of course we have.
Final thoughts. Do you think if A New Hope came out today, that it would be a success? And let's add one more part to this. Would it be a success? And would they make a trilogy from it in the modern day?
Modern day, using modern technology, I think that it would be a hit, but not as big of a hit as it was. I don't think that it would have made enough money to do a trilogy. Okay.
So for me, I'm on the same page. I think it would be a success. I think with Disney pushing it, it would definitely, it's really hard for Disney to flop. Even when they flop, it still makes money. And considering how much less they would have to pay, and really breaking down the movie process, I think it would be a success. I think at the very minimum, it would get a sequel. And in doing all that process, do I think there would be a trilogy? No. As I think about it now, I don't think there would be a trilogy. I do think there would be a sequel. I think A New Hope does a great job in setting something up. And then I think it would kind of go into something more of a finale. Because you learn and you understand during, A New Hope, Vader is not the overall leader. So when the Death Star blows up, there's someone else.
Actually, the thing is,
you don't see the Emperor.
You never really, throughout the entire, trilogy, we knew Vader was not the leader, even in New Hope.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, but in New Hope, we knew that he wasn't the big leader.
We didn't know who was.
Actually, yeah. We really thought that it would have been Tarkin.
Exactly.
Because of the way Tarkin, like, you can tell Tarkin was in charge. He sat there, he listened to everybody, and he said, okay, this is what we're doing.
So the reason why I also think that, and in my mind, I'm keeping all the scenes the same. You see Vader flying away at the end of it, and you know he can't get far. Obi-Wan already told us that TIE fighters and TIE in the whole line essentially do not have hyperdrives. They're short-range fighters, which means he has to get to somewhere to get to safety, or he's going to die in space. So there's at least going to be a sequel at the end of that.
Actually, I think that his TIE fighter did have a hyperdrive because it was an advanced.
Okay. I'll have to do more research on that, and I'll do that for a future episode. But the fact that he escaped means there would have had to have been at least a sequel. And at this point, I think a sequel would have called it, because nowadays you're also looking at movies that go 2 to 3 hours. So you're getting more screen time.
That's true.
The shots in the movie, all the things that take place in the movies.
Usually Peter Jackson, but yes.
There you go. But the speed of the movie is quicker, so you can fit a lot more in there. And I think that with all that going on, they will at least be able to knock out a decent sequel. So,
Okay.
All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, I'm Steve.
I'm Adam.
And this has been the Errant Venture. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you guys on the next one.